Today's game features Jaan Eslon playing as white against Mikhail Tal as black. Move 1. White occupies the center with the pawn. Black develops the knight to f6. White supports the center with c4. So, pushes to e6. We're at move 5. White completes minor piece development. Black stakes a claim in the center with d5. Continuing, knight to c3. Black pawn takes pawn. Queenside operations begin. Continuing, white repositions the queen to a4, checking the king. Black places the knight on d7. White establishes a central pawn on e4. Black establishes a pawn on c5. White responds with bishop captures pawn, offering material. Connecting the rooks soon. Moving forward, black pawn takes the pawn. On move 15, white knight takes pawn, a sacrifice. Black deploys the bishop to c5. It's white's turn. Develops the knight naturally, following the opening principles. Black continues with activates the bishop early. White develops the bishop naturally. Black tucks the king to safety. White develops the bishop to e3. At this point, black queen joins the attack. White short castle. Black now plays brings the knight to e5. We're at move 25. White pushes the pawn to h3. Black bishop moves to d7. White brings the queen into the fray. Black finds a better square for the knight. It's white's turn. Slides the queen to d1. Now, black brings the rook into play. White advances the pawn, preparing the final assault. Black continues with pushes forward to e5. Now, white pawn moves to f5, building a space imbalance. Moving forward, black improves the knight's position. We're at move 35. White takes the knight with the knight. It's black's turn. Pawn takes knight on d4. The position sharpens. Continuing, bishop snaps off the pawn. Black develops the bishop to c6. White knight to d5. Creating concrete threats. Black bishop snaps off the knight. White pawn captures, removing a key defender. Black knight snaps off the pawn. The technique is impeccable. Continuing, white queen hunts the enemy king. That doesn't look right. It's black's turn. Knight jumps to e3, an error in judgment. We're at move 45. White the pawn marches forward. Improving piece activity. Black queen to e4. White plays bishop snaps off the knight, cutting off the king. Black queen eliminates the bishop. Checking the king. Bringing the pieces to ideal squares. And here, king marches up the board. Black queen hunts the enemy king. Now, pushes forward to g3. Meanwhile, black slides the rook to e8. Executing the plan. White deploys the bishop to f3. Black queen captures the pawn on f6. On move 55, white repositions the queen to f2. Black slides the rook to e7. White brings the rook to e1. So, black rook trades rook, simplifying. White rook removes the rook, the advantage becomes clear. Black brings the rook to d8, cutting off the enemy king. White king walks to g2. Black pushes forward to b6. White cuts off the enemy king with the rook. Continuing, black plants the bishop on c5. On move 65, white brings out the queen to e1. Black pawn to g6, eliminating counterplay. White rook shifts to e8, giving check. Black continues with takes the rook with the rook. White queen takes the rook, giving check. Black king moves to g7. White continues with advances the pawn. That's a serious error. Black now deploys the queen to d4, not the best move. White brings out the queen to e1. Black advances the critical pawn. On move 75, white advances the critical pawn, improving the pawn structure. Black advances the pawn. White steps the king to h2. Black pawn moves to g5. White plays pawn takes pawn on g5. A questionable choice. Black plays pawn strikes, capturing the pawn. Next, white queen shifts to d1. Meanwhile, repositions the queen to f2, and that's check. A precise technical move. White repositions the bishop. The endgame idea is clear. Black responds with activates the king. On move 85, white pushes forward to b4. Black repositions the bishop. Now, white brings out the queen to f1, a game-changing blunder. And here, black queen moves to e3, missing the best continuation. Moving forward, pawn to g4, that's a serious error. It's black's turn. Pawn takes pawn on g4. Moving forward, white deploys the queen to b1, check. The king must move, activating the king. Black king to g7. White queen hunts the enemy king. An inaccuracy. Black plants the bishop on e5. Check. Very good. Move 95. White king steps to h1. That doesn't look right. Black continues with bishop to g3. A terrible oversight. Jaan Eslon resigns. Mikhail Tal wins the game.